Effort of more than 250 firefighters that finally brought that blaze under control 5 hours after the first alarm sounded. Their goal was to keep the flames that had already destroyed McCrory's from spreading north and south over the mall's roof. Their toughest obstacle was the heat.
It was roaring pretty good when we got here, and the heat was stifling. I mean, it was just no way to describe the heat. I'd come in on a search from the south side of the building, and by the time I got to McCrory's, it was a complete wall of flames, and there was nothing we could do, you know, as far as making a search and try to rescue victims. It was just too far gone.
All the smoke, you know, the toxicity of the gas, and I think that's what hurt a lot of our people, was that had a lot to do with the injuries, you know, like that.
The heat, the flames, the smoke, it was a dangerous situation for the firefighters and for mall shoppers and workers as well as they tried to escape the danger. One McCrory's employee did not make it out safely. 20-year-old Wayne Mortack of West Babylon was killed in the fire. He suffered cardiac arrest. Mortack was a math major at Stony Brook University. Police are still trying to identify the body of a woman who also died in the fire. Her body was badly burned, so officials are checking medical records to identify her. It is unclear at this hour if the woman was a shopper or a mall employee.
And dozens of people were injured in last night's blaze. Through the course of the night, 32 people were treated at local hospitals for smoke inhalation and minor injuries. Huntington Manor firefighter Michael Boer was the most seriously hurt. He was airlifted to Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx for burn treatment, but he was released from the hospital this morning. One of Boer's fellow firefighters from the Huntington Manor Department is still in Huntington Hospital. He is being held for observation. It
took the combined strength of 13 fire departments to battle last night's blaze, and our Don Crawford, who was on the scene just moments after the first alarm sounded. Don?
Scott, as my cameraman John Tankey and I headed toward the Walt Whitman Mall along Jericho Turnpike last night, our first sight of the blaze was from a quarter-mile away. We saw a huge black cloud of smoke billowing from the shopping center. We arrived there on the scene as fire engines with sirens screaming were still responding. Just moments after the blaze erupted at 8:30, the McCrory fire was already ravaging the East End section of the Walt Whitman Mall. Along with alarms, sirens, and yells from frantic firefighters, thunderous booms were heard, sounding like a series of explosions. It was actually parts of the building collapsing, but the risk of explosion did exist. Firefighters feared gas tanks used for cooking in the mall's restaurants might blow up. Fortunately, none did. And then, 9 o'clock, this tragic report. 2 people were unaccounted for.
2 people are missing from McCrory's? From McCrory's.
Rescuers hope the 2 were just lost in the crowd like others who rushed to get out of the inferno.
A lot of people were, you know, pushing around, you know, running and everything. I was looking for my mother. I didn't know where she was.
We were about to purchase something, and I turned and I looked and I saw tons of smoke. I grabbed my sister-in-law and I said, let's get out. We couldn't see. Our eyes were burning. We ran through the mall.
When I saw that fire, I was yelling at everybody, and I just turned around and ran.
Was there panic inside the mall?
Yeah, there was panic. Everybody was running that way, running towards A&S.
11:30 p.m., 3 hours after the fire began, one of the missing was found.
There's a confirmed fatality. There's a young man, approximately age 20, who was trapped for quite some time, apparently in the basement, as a victim of smoke inhalation.
The victim was later identified as 20-year-old Wayne Mortack, a part-time McCrory employee. And then, 1:45 a.m., more than 5 hours after the start of the fire, a second body was pulled from the charred remains of the mall. The victim burned beyond recognition. Now, that second victim has not yet been identified. Initially, I was told the person was a McCrory employee, but as Scott mentioned, police now say dental records may have to be checked before a positive ID is made. Melba?
All right, Don. Huntington Manor firefighters are no strangers to the Walt Whitman Mall. 7 years ago, they were called to a blaze at a greeting card store in the mall about an hour before the shopping center was set to open to the public. Before they could get the fire under control, 7 stores were destroyed, 25 more badly damaged. No one was killed or seriously injured in that 1984 fire. But after that fire, the most heavily damaged parts of the mall didn't reopen for 9 months. Walt Whitman Mall is closed tonight, and mall officials say it's going to stay closed until further notice.
Fire officials tonight will comb through the rubble looking for clues as to how the deadly fire started. They do say the blaze could have been contained and 2 lives saved if McCrory's had a sprinkler system on its main floor.
Building, keeping the public away as open